It is raining again in southeast Arkansas. I know God said he promised never to flood the earth again, but I'm not sure that promise extended just to southeast Arkansas. Anyway, we've been getting a lot of rain, but come July or August, I'm sure we'll be praying for more. All right, let's look ahead. What's coming up this week? Remember, we're in the unit entitled, He Said What? Hard Sayings of Jesus. This is lesson number 4. It's called Love Your Enemies. It's out of Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 36. And the point of the lesson is to love your enemies even as Christ loved you. Now, a lot of Luke chapter 6 reads like Matthew chapters 5 through 7, what we call the Sermon on the Mount there in Matthew. But this is a little different. In fact, if we look back in Luke chapter 6, verse 17, we see that Jesus went down and he stood on a level place. And so maybe one of your headings may say the Sermon on the Plain versus the Sermon on the Mount. So it's a little bit different. A lot of similarities, but some different wording. You know, I've preached the same message in different churches, different areas. I've used different examples, different wording, but the same message. And I think that's what Jesus is doing here. He preaches that same basic message, but it's just a little bit different. So let's not get hung up on it. Doesn't look exactly the same. All right, now several verses before this passage that we have this week, Jesus tells his disciples that you're going to be blessed when you're hated, when you're excluded, when you're rejected. And then he tells his disciples how to act when those things happen to them. And that's what our lesson is this week. And it goes against the opposite of our instinct, doesn't it? Jesus says to love your enemies, to do good to those who hate you. And that love is that form of that agapao, or agape. The noun is agape, the verb is agapao, which is that selfless love, that the concern for the other person's general well-being. And see, that's a matter of the will. It's not an emotional love, gushy, romantic love. It's a matter of the will, that you make yourself care for the other person. And that goes against our instinct, doesn't it? Now, then in verse 25, he says, bless those who curse you. That's the opposite. When somebody curses you, you bless them. Then he says to pray for those who mistreat you. That's the opposite as well. When somebody's mistreating you, the last thing you want to do is pray for them. Now, essentially, if you follow the command of this verse, you're relying on God for the outcome. You know, God said in Deuteronomy 32:35, he said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. See, retribution, vengeance, that's our natural instinct. And a further demonstration of withholding our vengeance is to turn the other cheek, as he mentions. To give to those who ask. If someone takes something away from you, offer them something else. Don't demand it back. But not only is retribution natural, but it's also natural to be nice to those who are nice to you, kind of the opposite. You know, when we're hurt, we want to hurt. When somebody's nice to us, we want to be nice to them back. Now, there's nothing wrong with being nice back to somebody, but if that's the only thing we do, then we're in the wrong. Jesus wants his followers to be different, not only to be nice, but to love, to care about their enemies, to have their best interest, to treat others, and that's all others, as you would want to be treated yourself. We call that the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want them or have them do unto you. Now, other religions and other cultures have similar statements, have a similar type of philosophy. The Greeks, the Jews, the Stoics, Confucius, even all those had the same thought, but they had it in a negative context. And it was something like, don't do to others what you don't like done to you. Again, Christianity is different. It's positive. It's not just withholding the bad, but it's also doing good as well. Christianity is about going above and beyond. It's not easy, it's not natural, but it's doable with the help of the Holy Spirit. Now, Jesus did this, didn't he? Now, he not only told us how to live, he lived it out himself. Before the crucifixion, he was beaten and slapped and all that. Didn't even argue, didn't even try to put up a fight against that. Didn't raise his voice, didn't retaliate at all. Even prayed for his enemies while he was on the cross. Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. Historically, this is how the United States has acted after a major war. You know, thanks to the United States, both Germany and Japan were rebuilt after World War II. Both are now thriving economies, and easily we could have said, ha, you made your bed and I'll lie in it. You've got what's coming to you. You got what you deserved, all that. But we didn't. We had compassion. We were merciful. And that's a great example to follow as individuals as well. All right, next week we're looking at letting the dead bury their dead. That sounds fun, doesn't it? Thank you guys very much for watching. I certainly appreciate you. Don't forget to what? Pray for your class. Thank you.